All right, hey guys. Week 10 of the Thunder Run is officially here, and it's pretty exciting. Peter's almost to his halfway point, and Peter and Robin will be on after me, and you can hear all about this week from the man himself. And I'm just going to talk kind of real briefly about Nori and Mason and Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Something cool. If you guys are following our page, you probably already saw, because I shared about it. For the first time ever, like ever, the White House went gold this year, which people have literally been like marching and going up every year in September and like talking to all the representatives and like voicing their opinion for years. And they've never been able to get the White House to turn gold, but this year they did. So it's very exciting. Just to see that recognition, I know it means a lot to a lot of families. To see childhood cancer kind of being taken, just see it more, being more of an important issue, taking it more seriously, because it's a very serious issue, but people just tend not to see it. Here in Kansas City, we actually have a fountain that turns gold every year for like the first 3 days of Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, which is really cool, but it kind of still shows you how much people don't know about childhood cancer awareness and how they don't think it's important. Because so it can kind of be discouraging. Like you kind of don't want to read the comments on things because you see a lot of just discouraging comments. And, my first thought is, well, they've never obviously had anything happen in their lives before. They've never seen a child fight cancer, or they would never make those kinds of remarks. And it's just, nice to see some people taking it very seriously. Some people of importance, like the White House and the president, taking childhood cancer seriously and bringing a lot of awareness to it. They obviously have a huge platform, like the biggest, so it's really exciting to see that. And I hope this month that you all just share everything you can on childhood cancer awareness. It doesn't have to just be from us, from anywhere. Any pages that you follow, any kids that you follow that are fighting right now, just show that these are real kids. These aren't just statistics. And they need our support and our love, including Nori. So Nori was our kid last week. She was segment 9, so that's the segment that Peter just ran. And if you follow our page, we did post an update from her mom that she has relapsed, which is just so devastating to hear, because she has been fighting for so long, since she was 2.5 and she's 7 now. It's a small spot on her spine. All the doctors think it's very much treatable. I am positive they're going to get Nori back to NED status, back to no evidence of disease. But it's heartbreaking when you've seen your child fight so hard just to be hit again, just to have to start treatment all over again. Nori's actually been clear of disease for 2.5 years, but she just stopped treatment 6 months ago. So only 6 months off treatment and she relapsed, and that's just so hard. I was immediately just heartbroken as soon as I read her mom's update. There's just no words, and it just reminds us, I know it reminded Peter, reminded Robin, reminded everyone a part of Emery's Merit Foundation why we're doing this, why our kids need more options and safer options, and this is why. Yeah, the treatments, we need new treatments. We need things that aren't just high doses of chemo that just wreck their bodies, ruin their, it's just devastating when you get that kind of news, and it just reminds you why we're fighting so hard. And Nori and Holly and Nori's whole family, if you guys are watching, just know that we've been thinking of you guys all week, and we're going to keep praying for you guys. And like I said, I'm 100% sure Nori is going to get right back to NED, and we're just going to be praying for you guys. And then for segment 10, this week is all about Mason. It's we were just talking about Nori and Mason, how kind of similar they are right now. They both go to the same hospital. They've both been on the same trials. They've both relapsed. I think they're just like a year apart in age. They're just kind of similar. So I'm just going to tell his story just real fast. I have it written down here. I'm going to go over a little bit of his story so you guys kind of know what he's gone through. So Mason was 5 years old, and he was getting his picture taken for kindergarten when his stomach started hurting. Instead of going to his very first day of school, he went and got his very first CT scan. They thought he had appendicitis, but instead they found a peach-sized tumor on his right adrenal gland. And if you know anything about neuroblastoma, that's the most common spot for a tumor to show up is on the adrenal gland. So that next week he had surgery, and they removed the tumor, and after they tested it, they found out it was neuroblastoma. They told the family that he only had a 1 to 3% chance of his cancer returning, but 6 months later, scan showed that he was still cancer-free. 2 months later, he started having pain in his legs and the same pain in his abdomen, and they sent him straight for a CT scan. It was then that they found out that Mason had cancer everywhere. So it went from just being on his adrenal gland, which they removed, but it's still, 6, 7, 8 months later, had gone everywhere. It was in his bones, top of his skull, to his thighs, it was in his bone marrow. He had a large tumor that branched off through his abdomen and encased several major arteries, and his cancer went to stage 4. He started treatments right away, 6 rounds of chemo, and 8.5-hour surgery that left a 12-inch scar down his side. He then had several painful rounds of immunotherapy, and then he began the vaccine trial at Sloan Kettering. He said it's the same hospital that Nori goes to. After being in NED for 364 days, so he was just 1 day away from being cancer-free for a whole year, they found out that he relapsed. So once again, Mason's family's world was turned upside down. They had to start treatment right away. A lot of relapse treatments are a combination of chemotherapy and immunotherapy. After 4 hard rounds, they found out that he was NED again, which NED means no evidence of disease. So now Mason is 8 years old. He will have to finish 5 more rounds of this chemo and immunotherapy combination, and then he will restart the vaccine trial again and hope that this time that the cancer stays away for good. I mean, he's really been through a lot in 3 years. That's him with his little sister. Turning 8, birthdays are definitely a big deal. So it just shows these kids go through so much. So then to have a relapse, it just is why it's so devastating. They go through treatments that are just as hard, if not harder, than adult treatments. I mean, I can remember them telling me that the chemo that Emery went through was the highest doses of chemo that they give to kids. It's crazy. The neuroblastoma is just so aggressive and sneaky, and it hides, and it waits, and it mutates, and then they relapse or they progress. So that's why they try to hit them so hard. But it'd be really nice one day for us to really start seeing, them moving away from using such high doses of chemo, because it's that high doses of chemo that causes all the horrible side effects that you hear about. So that's one of the big reasons why I love Beat Childhood Cancer, the foundation group that we are partnered with for Emery's Thunder Run. That is definitely one of their main goals. Instead of just kids being on a standard treatment protocol that, no matter like where it started or how much cancer they have or, what stage, they kind of just put them all on the same protocol. And, every kid is different. Every person is different, and they all respond differently. And if a kid doesn't respond the way that they want them to, they can be kicked off the protocol, or their chances of survival go way down. And that's why they need individualized treatment plans. They need treatment plans that don't involve such high doses of chemo. But that all takes funding. That all takes donations. That takes grants. That takes a man running across the United States to bring awareness to and to raise the funding for. It just doesn't happen. We doctors and research Groups would love to do much more than they're doing, but they can't without the money. Like we said before, the government doesn't see the need to fund childhood cancer research, nor do pharmaceutical companies. It doesn't make them enough money. That's really what it comes down to. So then it's up to us. It's up to the parents and friends and families and groups like Beat Childhood Cancer and people like Peter who care and who put their whole heart into what they're doing. And that's what's going to make a difference. So please, when Peter hops on a little bit, please ask him questions in the comments because, we really like to see you guys interacting and chatting and being involved. So please make sure you're thinking of any questions you could ask him. Put those in the comments. Please keep donating, and really, even if you can just donate $5 a week, $10 a week, like that really does help, and that adds up pretty quickly. Also, there are really easy little fundraisers you could do. You could do Facebook fundraisers, which requires, really nothing. You just set it up off Facebook. You could also go to your local businesses and ask them to have a donation jar, or ask them to, pick, a bakery, ask them to pick a cookie that part of the proceeds, if people buy that cookie, it goes to us, or anything like that. You can think of little things to do that really can make a big difference. We really need everybody to come together if we're going to reach our goal. Because our goal is a pretty high goal. $200,000 is a lot of money, and we're halfway there, but we're kind of slowing down a little bit, and we're kind of at that halfway mark. We really just need to punch it hard now and get it going and keep it going and get our momentum going again. So if you guys could please just share, please share with your friends. Just hit the share button. That takes like a second. Tell everyone why you shared and why it's important to donate and why our kids deserve more. And then I think just for me, I'm just going to go over the slideshow, a recap from week 9 of all the warriors and angels that we honored this last week. Which this is definitely one of my favorite parts of this run. And Peter has been such a trooper doing this every single day, you guys. Like he takes the video, he gets them sent to me, and then I upload them, and we try to make sure the parents and the family are seeing that their kiddos are getting honored or remembered. I think it just makes it so much more special than it already is. And so a lot of these kids are angels. Some of them are still fighting. Some are, out of treatment, which is great. And I think this is just so important. This is such an important part of the run to put all these little faces up, and it's just a good reminder that these are real kids. This is somebody's baby, somebody's daughter, somebody's son, somebody's niece, somebody's nephew, somebody's granddaughter, grandson. Like these are real kids. These aren't just statistics on a piece of paper. So I think it's just a good reminder. All right, guys. I think that's it for me this week. So next up is going to be Peter and Robin, and you're going to get to hear all about Peter's week. I hope you guys have a good week, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you, Jenna. And here we are. I'm Robin. And on the side of the screen beside me is my husband, Peter. Most of you, all of you know who he is. He's the crazy runner. So Peter, obviously, Emery's Thunder Run is harder than you probably imagined. What do you think? Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like to pass into Kansas? You've run through 3 full states now, 4, right?
California, Nevada, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, 5 states. I'm in my 6th state.
Yeah.
Harder than I thought. I don't know that I would use the word harder, but definitely not what I thought. Not what I thought in the sense that it's changed me in ways that I didn't quite anticipate. I knew it would change you and I, but I didn't quite anticipate some of the ways that it would change me, such as, if you were going to ask.
Such as?
Well, this week, I realized that, I mean, there's a lot of talk about our fundraising goal. And for the longest time, I felt like, I mean, my original goal was a lot smaller than, I'm sorry to say, but it's true, was a lot smaller than what Emery's Memory Foundation came up with. And when they came up with 200,000, I'm 100% behind that. And I felt like, okay, we can do that, you know, and I believe we can do that and will do that. But the thing that changed was my view of a fundraising goal. Like I still think they're important, but I felt like there was a point where I felt like, wow, we're at 110,000. I mean, if it ended now, that's great. You know, I mean, that's a lot of money. You know, 75% of that we're going to give to Beat MB, our Beat Childhood Cancer. And that's a lot of money. So I felt good about that. But then I was thinking about the clinical trial drug that Beat Childhood Cancer has, DFMO,
Mm-hmm.
and the cost that they pay for children to be on that to keep them from relapsing. So most neuroblastoma kiddos will get to remission, but more than 50% of them will relapse. And there's no good safe protocol for relapsed neuroblastoma. So keeping them from relapsing is important. It's one of their goals. And so the cost of that, if I remember right, is $10,000 a year or $20,000 for 2 years for one child. So if we hand a check over to Beat Childhood Cancer for $100,000, that's 5 children. If it's $20,000 for 2 years, and I was like, do I really want to consider that success?
Mm-hmm.
It's only 5, and what if? So then I was like, well, what if we hit our goal, 200,000? 10 kids. Is that really success? 10. So I was like, well, what point do you consider this run? Or it's not just this run. There are a lot of people that are fighting this. You know, at what point do we as a collective whole say we did it? You know, and that applies to us and our fundraising goal of 200,000. And I accepted the fact that hitting 200,000 isn't going to be enough for me. Like, I cannot say success at 200,000, even though that's our goal. And I definitely can't say success at 110,000. So it was kind of sad this week when I realized how much work is ahead. And of course, the next question I had to ask myself is, what am I going to do about it? You know, am I going to walk away after this and say, well, I did the best I could? It's all up to you guys now, you know? And that's another story, maybe another conversation that we can have, but
Yeah,
that's not it for me. Even if we hit our $200,000 goal, I can't consider that success anymore. I could 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, I could consider 100,000 success, but not at all today.
yeah.
So
I think the further we get into this, we realize the enormous need. It's so much. It is. You're right. It's so much bigger than 200,000.
It's a lot. 200,000, and I know I can do more. I know we can do more. I know we have to have a conversation, not on a video about what we're going to do, but both want to do more.
Right. Definitely. And
So
you haven't even reached the halfway point, Peter. So I, we just,
I haven't hit
I
the
am very
halfway, but
optimistic.
that's changed for me. What's halfway now? You know, I mean, 3,100 miles, halfway, 1,550. I'll be at the halfway point Tuesday or Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
But is that really halfway for me?
Right. It might, it doesn't, it sounds like it's not going to be.
Well, I feel like, we've gotten better each time we've tried to advocate for others on their behalf, and we'll do the best that we can this time, and next time it'll be even more, because we'll take the lessons that we've learned from this and build on that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, people have been asking me, how does it feel? You're halfway. How does it feel? You're halfway fundraising. How does it feel? And I know what they mean. And of course, it feels good to be achieving a goal. But bottom line, my goal has changed and I'm not halfway.
Yeah.
Not even close. It's like, how can you feel good about pulling 5 kids out of a burning car and leaving one? I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel good about that. I'm not proud of that.
Yeah.
What's the difference? I mean, this is no different. To me, it's no different. If more than 50% are going to relapse and there's no standard protocol for relapse neuroblastoma, and people talk about the numbers, 750 a year. I've heard different numbers, and it always gets labeled as rare, but it's the most solid, it's the most common form of cancer in infants.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the other change this week, is it became more clear to me that my heart, I want to advocate 100% for the brokenhearted.
Mm-hmm.
This situation, the brokenhearted are the parents that have either lost their child or are in the fight of their lives for their child.
Right.
But it's not just the parents. Grandparents lose
Mm-hmm.
and suffer. Siblings lose and suffer. And what I really would love to figure out is how I can make everybody understand that we, the general public, lose and suffer when we lose one of these kids, even if they're not related to us.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I've been fortunate to see a lot more of this in the writings that you've shared with me this week, which in some way, shape, or form are going to be made available to other people too. But yes, I have no doubt that your heart is changing in a major way. And yeah, I would imagine it's giving you the fuel you need to keep going, all the way to the end of this run.
oh, most definitely. But this run is no longer the end, even when it does end.
Uh-huh. I always knew that was coming.
But doesn't really
Anybody listening is probably like, what is
cross.
he talking about?
Yeah. Well, the goal is to always involve more and more people, right? So,
Right.
you know, the better thing would be, rather than just me running across the country, would be other people, involving more people
Mm-hmm.
in this, and something that they feel that they can give and have the time and energy and talents and gifts to give to.
Yeah.
Not too many people can or are willing to run across
Yeah.
it. So, and I don't away from you guys again for 4 months. So I got to figure out something to where I can raise more money, but
Mm-hmm.
away from home for 4 months at a time. I don't know how people in the military do it. I couldn't
I
do it.
don't know either.
I couldn't do it. I mean, I know that they obviously have a high calling and purpose, and they're willing to make that sacrifice like we're doing. So anyway,
Well,
so it's kind of, the run is no longer, I mean, it never felt like like just the milestones have changed. The milestones have changed.
yeah. And you've got a lot of miles ahead of you still. You've
Yeah.
got new crew support. You're fully supported all the way to the Atlantic
Yeah,
Ocean now,
I know.
which is we're
And
grateful for. I'm grateful for.
our first returning crew member, like somebody
Yes.
said, I want to do it again,
Yes.
which I don't know. That's amazing. I'm so grateful for that.
I'm looking at the comments a little bit because it's hard for me to see. So
Yeah.
Peter and I are both doing this from our cell phones this week, and not under the most ideal circumstances that we can't see any questions that are coming in. But if there are questions in the chat, we'll answer those in the comments after the live.
But of them could be highlighted while we're talking.
Yeah. I
But
mean, there's a lot of comments, but I'm not so sure about questions. For people that have followed along since the beginning, I mean, they know you're running more than 28 miles a day on average, I think, right? To make
yeah,
up
I mean,
for a day.
it's always been about 29, 30 miles a day. But a couple of weeks ago, when I went and ran the 28 miles that I could not run when the route was literally at the epicenter of a forest fire,
Yes.
by going back and running those 28, I had to let go of 28 ahead of me.
Right.
So I've been running an extra 2, 3, 4 miles a day to make up that 28. So,
Yes.
we've been doing 50 plus K days. And I'm hoping that by the end of this week, we'll be all caught up.
Yeah.
And then we'll be back down to just a marathon a day.
Just a marathon a day. How are you holding up physically? Honestly, what is it like in the morning when your alarm goes off and, this week it's your sister coming to tell you, or you're waking up?
I mean, I've always been able to get up, and it's been hard, and I don't want to get up, but I get up. But this week, for the first time, I got up, ate my breakfast. I mean, it's like 4:30 in the morning, pitch black out, got dressed, put my shoes on. We got in the truck, went to the starting point, dead outside, no cars, nothing, the moon, stars. And I walked 2 miles and I'm like falling asleep. I'm like, I cannot.
Mm-hmm.
I went back to the camper and slept till about 10. I just had nothing in me.
Yeah.
So how am I holding up? That was the first time I felt that kind of fatigue. The miles still got done that day. It's just
Yes.
they didn't start at 4:30. And the other thing I've noticed is my ribs hurt. Like, I don't know if it's just the running, bouncing, but by the middle of the week, end of the week, I feel like I've had like bruised ribs before. I know what they feel like. And I feel like I might have like very mildly bruised ribs. So it's painful to run in that way. But my feet, my legs, my hips, all of that is fine.
Great.
Just some bruised ribs.
And you have your sister, Missy, who was Emery's Mima.
Yes.
Again for a second week.
She's doing a great job, especially keeping everybody posted, because I'm still ready to throw my cell phone into the swamp. It's not my cell phone. It's
coverage.
It's the provider of the coverage. And I mean, ultimately it's me because I chose the provider. Um, I'm hoping I've noticed a slight increase in signal strength as I get a little closer to the actual Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping this week I could maybe do a couple of lives. I just got to keep them short, and that's impossible for me to do. It is.
I know.
You know, we had something really cool that I wanted to share this week.
Okay.
That happened. And this has happened almost every day since we left California. But one was really cool this week. A young, well, I say young, he looked a little younger than me, but he's probably close to my age. Guy stopped and was talking to us. They live in Kansas, not far from where I'm at right now. And his wife saw me and the truck and us,
Mm-hmm.
the crew, running in Denver. And she took notice of it and checked out the website, told her husband about it. And then now they see us again in Kansas. And he drove by us working a couple of times and actually stopped and asked us what we're doing. And I'm always really, interested in them. So, I mean, we tell them a little bit. I tell them a little bit about what I'm doing, but I try to quickly ask them about themselves and learn about them because I care about them. And so he told me what he does, and we had a nice conversation. And I never asked him for a donation, but in the end, he made a very nice donation. And so somebody in Denver and went all the way to Kansas, saw us. Another guy that's a truck driver has been going up and down the road, seeing me, back and forth. And he was on his day off on his motorcycle and stopped. And we had a conversation with him. And there were a couple of other conversations that happened. And that happened, all throughout this
Mm-hmm.
week. And, there's so many ways that we can tell people about neuroblastoma. And,
Right.
awareness is something that there's a side to awareness that you and I learned a couple of years ago that nobody ever talks about. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I could share it in about a minute. And that is, I'll wait till that goes by. That is when people are talking about neuroblastoma, just normal people, especially people that aren't going through it, people like me. I've never had a child deal with a type of childhood cancer, and there's dozens of childhood cancers. Neuroblastoma is just one of them. I've never experienced that type of loss or fear. um,
Mm-hmm.
so when people like me, the more people like us talk about it, the
Yeah.
side nobody appreciates about awareness but is really really important is the fact that there is like significant trauma that happens to people when they're watching their child go through this,
Mm-hmm.
as you know. And and it happens to the children too. So, and it's hard for them to talk about it for a lot of reasons. It's just hard for them to talk about it, but they want to talk about it. So why don't we start the conversation first? Just us normal people, just talk about it. I've had the experience before where somebody was overhearing a conversations that was started after a fundraising event that you and I were doing. And I don't know if you remember, but they shared that just hearing other people talk about it made
Mm-hmm.
them comfortable to finally talk for the first time about what they were going through.
Yes.
And it was a big deal for this individual. So when, for all the outsiders, which I am one of them,
Yeah.
when you hear, it's Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, don't freak out. It's okay if you don't donate. I mean, yes, we're asking for donations, but if you can't, don't freak out about it. Still listen and still have the conversation because you are actually secretly helping people by doing that,
Right.
and it costs you nothing.
Right.
So there's
Yeah.
been a lot of walk across the state of Kansas, and I think I'm going to be getting some truckers on board.
That's great.
Yeah, Thumper
And
said
you are going into a more populated area. I mean, as you get further east, I think you'll be able to interact with people more on the ground, which is what the purpose of this run is, to go through these communities and have face-to-face contact with people.
Yeah. And hopefully through my cell phone.
Yes. It will get better. Oh, well, I know I love to hear you talk about it. I think other people do too. And, we're going to keep the conversation going every week. We'll be back on Sunday nights to hear how the week went and hear what you've learned and how you've been challenged, the people you've talked with.
Yes.
I would say momentum is still building for Emery's Thunder Run.
Oh,
and
absolutely. I don't see it though all the time because I'm
right. But it is building and people are hearing about it. And we do have some up and coming potential media exposure. And we really want people who have any connections to media to please help us out in that way and contact your local media and tell them about Emery's Thunder Run. Tell them, what Peter's doing. And we really need some positive news in the media. So this is a really good positive story. And we're hoping to really start having it get picked up. And one other, we talked about this, Peter, that I was going to put this ask out there. All along as Peter prepared for this run, he kind of had this idea. He has this idea that he would love to put together like an illustrated storybook about the run. And we need someone with artistic talent who likes to draw. And if anybody out there knows somebody who, hears that and thinks, oh, I wonder what they have in mind, please reach out to Emery's Memory Foundation. Peter has some really, I thought they were, I know they're really amazing ideas of what he would like this book to look like and what the message would be, telling the story of these children that he's running for. So that's my ask tonight. In addition to, to continue to tell people about the run. If somebody out there has artistic ability and can illustrate kind of like a children's picture book, I think is what you have in mind, right, Peter?
Yeah. And it's not, I don't want it to be so much about the run or about me.
Right.
It might be a story of, two stories intertwined into one, a little bit about the run, some photos about the run and areas that I suffered and hurt in. And, but I want the thrust of the story to be from the parents' perspective.
Yes.
And I mean, the goal would be for it to be a book that anybody can read that has a broken heart from, from losing a loved one or from having to fight for the life of a loved one. That breaks your heart too. Yeah. So I would, my general vision of it is for it to be a book that would be, it's nothing that's ever going to make that better, but just something that would hold somebody's head up above the water for a little bit while they're going through this.
Yes.
So they can get a couple of gulps of air, and then finish their day as best as they can.
Yeah. So that's out there, and now it's getting late, and I'm not your babysitter, but I do want you to get a good night's sleep because you do have to get up early tomorrow morning and start running another segment. Yeah. So you usually are in bed by about this time, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't fall asleep until 8-ish though, or 9 even.
So we're gonna wrap up tonight, and again, if there were any questions in the comments, we'll take a look at those and answer those in the comments. And yeah, we just really appreciate you tuning in or watching this on the replay. So we'll see you next week. Do you have any final words, Peter?
No, thank you for joining us, though. I wish I could see who was watching.
I know it's
Oh,
hard when
well,
we do this
Julie's
on our
watching.
phones, so we'll have
Yeah.
to take a look afterwards.
Yeah.
Maybe nobody's still on with us. I don't know.
Well,
But
it
I
was
will
nice
see.
talking to you.
Yeah. Well, so for now, we're going to sign off, and everybody have a good night. Have a good week. And please keep following Emery's Thunder Run.
Good night.